Welcome back. We're out in our little greenhouse. I'm over by our heat sink checking out all of our mixed lettuce here. Got a decent little patch of lettuce. This is sitting 73 degrees in the shade, and that's all the passive heat coming off of that heat sink. The sun heats this up. I just keep our little thermometer in the shady side here. The little rock catches a little bit of sunlight in the front, so the rock is basically about 73 degrees. This whole heat sink is drawing all of that heat right up, and we're using all that heat on top. We've got some of our marshmallow herbs, some of our oreganos, sorrels. They've got a little bit of cold damage to them, but we've had some pretty cold temperatures. We were sitting about 0 degrees this morning, and that's the end of our cold spell. Hopefully we've had about a month, a little bit over a month of really cold and negative temperatures, so hopefully we've broken those cold temperatures. And last night I made a fail because I left our water pump off. See all this ice? We've got our hot compost water I just turned back on, and it is melting right through that ice, basically creating holes. You can see where it burnt right through there. You can see where my finger's going into the ice about an inch. That compost heat coming through our wall, coming through our fan, I can feel the hot air blowing back out, which is aiding in melting this ice. And it was just melting and kind of had a little bit of water on it when I came out here, and this was not running because I had turned it off. I have it back on, running. Got to kick the timer back on. So this hopefully will not be frozen back in the morning because I have this system on, and it's catching some solar power now that I have it on and running. So I should be able to catch and store enough light and energy into this system to be able to run this through the night, or for at least 5, 6, 7 hours till the sunlight comes again in the morning. So I'm not too worried about this giant chunk of ice. I got my cord actually like trapped in it, so I'm just leaving it in here. I just thought it was really cool how this compost water was just basically cutting a hole in this ice and chewing it out, and it's only been running for about 10 minutes here. And even though I made this mistake, I still have a reliable system that is able to thaw this. We've got a lot of energy in our compost, so we're able to catch all of that heat and really transfer it to our water, which makes this system pretty flawless in the winter time. Even if you have a mistake like this where you have a freeze up, it's able to still run. It's still cooking. So having this John Payne compost heating system to rely on for heating in our greenhouse is pretty invaluable, because the only time we ever really have a mistake or a freeze up is when I have a mistake and turn the system off and forget to turn it back on. In the late fall, I got this pile built up big enough. I was worried that it might not cook all winter, but we're still putting some good heat off of it. We are still able to get this ice melted up and get our overflow bin back in operation and get everything basically functioning again. It was all frozen up overnight. Everything in our compost pile was still warm, so all we had to do was turn our system on and let it flow. So the reliability of this John Payne system is there if it is done correctly, if you have your scaling correct, if you're transferring enough water, transferring enough air through it, collecting methane off of it. Depending on how you're using your system, it is very pertinent that the pile is large enough to supply this, because if we didn't have a big enough pile, this would be frozen and we would not have water coming out of there to basically continue warming that up, and we will not have any more ice in there hopefully by the morning time. And like I said, that was our mistake for not turning this system back on. But having this system running, we're able to achieve pretty decent growth in these beds here, and we're able to keep a lot of stuff alive. We're transplanting lots of stuff, hardening lots of stuff out, lots of plants in here, lots of walking onions. We're just kind of slowly transitioning into spring, and it's not really springtime yet, but we're able to keep good enough temperatures in here that all of these baby plants are doing decently well, and they are going to prosper in this bed. They're catching all the heat that we have on this buried little hose. So the whole front side of this bed is warmed in the soil, and the whole back side of this bed is warmed from the sun and from the soil, because our John Payne composting system has the hose come all the way through this entire bed and come back around me and back up this whole side and there it comes back out. So it comes right out of the ground right about here. So everything from here back is all warmed in the soil to at least 50 to 60 degrees all the time. So that's why it's so crucial that I have this system running and don't leave it off anymore, because I want to keep all these beds warm. I just rolled this whole tarp up to let everything breathe a little bit and let some unfiltered sunlight in there, but those bricks are physically warm to the touch. Everything's physically warm. Everything's doing well in here. So this little 45-degree angle to the sun here is working very well. Along with our little hoop here I showed, we've got some rose bushes that have been getting covered up with some extra tarp. Everything seems to be doing well because of our heating system. Now, if we weren't heating this greenhouse at all, I think all of this soil would be absolutely frozen and we wouldn't be able to grow in any of it. I really don't want to find out if it would be that way if I shut my systems off and didn't heat this greenhouse. But I've witnessed in our large 52-foot greenhouse how frozen the soil can get within a couple feet of the edge. So being that our greenhouse is only about 6 foot wide, we really don't have a whole lot of room for error. We've got to heat this greenhouse. We've got to have our heat sinks. We've got to have everything in place in order to keep everything alive and keep it insulated in here. Just kind of wanted to share some ups and downs of growing in the winter time and trying to keep things operating, and always remembering to turn your systems back on when you turn them off. So if anyone's got any questions on our Jean Pain composting system, or anything I covered today, or anything you see going on in this little greenhouse, definitely drop it in the comments below. We'll get right back to you. We always love bouncing ideas off of everybody and sharing what we're finding out and what we're learning.